Torah is just a long string of numbers. Some say that it's a code sent to us from God.
That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's just good stuff. Check this out, okay? The word for the Garden of Eden, Kedem. Numerical translation, 144. Now the value of tree of knowledge, all right, in the garden, right? Eitz HaChaim, 233. 144, 233. And you can take those numbers. So
like the Fibonacci sequence?
Fibonacci.
Fibonacci is an Italian mathematician in the 13th century. If you divide 144 into 233, the result approaches theta.
Theta?
Theta. Greek symbol. Golden ratio, golden spiral.
Wow. I never saw that before. That's like that series you find in nature? Like the face of a sunflower?
Wherever the spirals.
You see this math everywhere.
Welcome back to the Gnostic Informant, and you are about to attain Medea, true Gnosis. What's up, everybody? So I am doing this live right now because I've been doing a little looking into some stuff, and sometimes we get caught up in dogma. Dogma is an ugly daemon. It'll suck you in, and you don't even realize it. Next thing you know, you're on a team. You're part of a cult trying to argue for one thing at all cost. And then you sacrifice virtue, arete, justice, decay, all those things, the truth, the logos, all out the window in the name of dogma, in the name of some sort of belief that you want to be true. I see this happening with people who think that the Bible is either all Greek and no Hebrew, or it's all Hebrew, and not only that, there's no influences from the Hellenistic philosophers or anything like that. I wanted to do a stream on this today. That's what we're going to get into. So I'm not calling anyone out by name. I'm just bringing the pure truth from the Muse. The Muse does not care what you want to be true. You know, this all started when I was at my King James church. It's so reminiscent of when I left the church. I got all these messages from on Facebook Messenger and my phone from people trying to basically cuss me out for daring to think. Because when I left my church, I didn't leave Christianity. I went to a different church. I went to the speaking in tongues kind of churches. That's what I went. That was my last stop before I actually left. I wanted the real spirit. I wanted that Bacchic spirit. So these people were like, I can't believe you're going to that church. That's the devil. That's the devil taking you over. The King James is the perfect and purest Bible. Don't you know that all these other Bibles are counterfeit? And it's crazy because I remember for the first time ever looking up ancient Greek manuscripts. I even bought a copy of the received text, the received, what do you call it? The Textus Receptus. And I remember looking through the Textus Receptus and looking at the King James and going, oh my God, the King James is off. The King James is using added verses that somehow got in through the Latin side. They're not in the Greek. And I would show people. I had friends that I was at church with that I would talk to outside of church. My friend Justin, he doesn't talk to me anymore because of this. I said, Justin, look at this is the received text. 1 John 5:7. That's the biggest example. The 1 John, the letter of 1 John, 5:7. 5:7. And I said, look what it says here. Look what it says. Look what the Textus Receptus says. Look what the Greek says. And look what the King James says. Hey, what are you doing? Oh my God. Hold on a second. I'll be right back. I gotta fix something. Oh, wow. Medea, get out of there. She's pulling on cords and stuff, and things are falling all over the place. Sit right there. There you go. All right. Long story short is dogma. It didn't matter. I could grab my buddy Justin by the neck. I could grab him and put his face in the text and say, look what it says. He didn't care. It didn't matter. The church had to be right. Somehow that Bible got corrupted by the church, by Catholics or something. That's what he would say. Somehow we're right and somehow they're wrong. And I'm seeing the same thing happen here. Same exact thing happen here. Doesn't matter what you do. You could grab someone by the neck, pull them to the evidence. They don't care. How I learned it has to be correct. That evidence over there, I don't know. I don't know how they got there. Something's wrong with it, though. We'll figure it out. I'll have to figure it out later. All right. First thing I want to do, I'm going to use Cross Bible. By the way, I should put this link in the description. I will put this link in the description. This is Cross Bible. A friend of mine started this website himself. I subscribe. You can actually, if you want, you could chip in and help donate to the site to make it run better. You could sit there. You could take all these Bibles and you could set them side by side and compare them. This is my new tool. It's such a good tool. I like putting the Hebrew on the right and the Greek on the left because the Hebrew reads right to left and the Greek reads left to right. And they flow into each other like this. That's why I like this website. By the way, thanks for joining Tiger Shark. I just saw there thank you, Tiger Shark, for joining. All right, before I come to this page right here, I want to address an argument that I hear a lot. It's a common argument that I hear a lot. Medea, get out of there. Come on. So the common argument I get a lot is that, didn't you read the letter from Julius Africanus to Origen? He tells you that the Bible was Greek. You might have heard this before. But the person that's telling you this might be doing some diddling. I'm sorry. It's being real here. There's some diddling going on here. So let's pull up this letter first. Let's just look at the letter, and then we're going to look at what his argument is. We're going to go straight to the text that he's talking about, and then we're going to go and look at Hebrew and Greek side by side. All right. So Julius Africanus writes a letter to Origen in the early 3rd century, I think it is, something like that. And he says, "Greeting, my lord and son, most worthy Origen, from Africanus. In your sacred discussion with Agnomon, you referred to the prophecy of Daniel, which is related of his youth. This at that time as we meet, I accepted as genuine. Now, however, I cannot understand how it escaped you that this part of the book is spurious." Huh? He's talking about Daniel, the book of Daniel. So Daniel, it's written in Hebrew and Aramaic. And so far in this letter, he's saying something's wrong here. That's all we know so far. You might have heard this already. So let's keep going. "For in truth, this section, although apart from this elegantly written, is plainly a modern forgery." Wow. "There are many proofs for this. When Susanna..." Oh, wait a minute. Susanna? That's not even in Daniel. Well, it is in Daniel. It's Daniel 13. That's the Apocrypha Daniel. Okay, let's just continue. So we're talking about Susanna. We're not talking about the whole book of Daniel, let alone we're not talking about the entire Tanakh, Torah, whatever you want to call it, Old Testament. We're not talking about the whole Bible. He's only mentioned so far part of Daniel, Susanna. "When Susanna is condemned to die, the prophet is seized by the Spirit and cries out that the sentence is unjust. Now, in the first place, it is always some other way that Daniel prophesies by visions and dreams and an angel appearing to him, never by prophetic inspiration. Then, after crying out in extraordinary fashion, he detects them in a way no less incredible, which is not Philistion, the playwriter, would have resorted to. For not satisfied with rebuking them through the Spirit, he placed them apart and asked them severally where they saw her committing adultery. And once the one said, under a holm tree, Greek prinos, he answered that the angel saw him asunder, preseen. And in a similar fashion, menaced the other who said, under a mastic tree, which in Greek is skinos. Now remember, Origen speaks this language, he writes in this language, he knows this language. He's not translating like we're doing today. This is his language, so he's reading this. So I don't know if you heard Danny Jones talking to Kip Davis. I brought this up, and Kip was like, "Well, that's a late text." Not really. He still speaks Koine Greek, so we got to take this very seriously. Okay, I just thought that was a kind of a get out of here type of waving off the evidence that you don't like type thing. All right, under skinos, with being rent asunder, skisthenai. Now, in Greek, it happens to be home tree and then saw asunder and rend and mastic tree sound alike. But in Hebrew, they are quite distinct. But all the books, all right, you might have heard this argument before from somebody. And that particular somebody naughty. Stop diddling people. Stop diddling people. Because why would you look? I'm going to lose friends. It's already happened before. Like I said with the church, I lose friends all the time over this type of stuff, over things that I can't stand when people know something and then they don't tell the truth on purpose. Devil makes me do it. And I lose all my friends because of it. This is what happens. I call people out and they never talk to me ever again. All right. So you might have heard all of that before, and they might have told you this was talking about the entire Bible. The last thing that Origen says is, but all of the books of the Old Testament have been translated from Hebrew into Greek. So why are you using this source as evidence that the Hebrew Bible is actually all Greek? I'm not saying this is the end all be all either for the Hebrew side. I think we need to look at every single text one by one and compare the Greek and the Hebrew. This is just one guy. So let's look at his argument for Daniel. It's very strong, and I think it's perfect. I think he's absolutely correct that Susanna, Daniel 13, is a Greek text. Let's take a look. I think I brought it here. Yep. I don't want to go to Cross Bible yet because I have that page right where I want it. I don't want to keep messing around with it. So I just pulled up this just to get side by side. Just so see how he says mastic tree, right? And it's verse 54, where you see where it says the word he uses is skinos. So just to show you what I'm talking about. So right here it says Ode dikayon uk apotenis. Oh, here it is. Okay. It says Ode ipen upo skinon. Right here. Upo skinon. Over or under, I'm sorry, over a mastic tree. And then the next verse, the angel replies with sort of an acrostic, like poetic phrase where he says, "Tu teu skisi, say mesun." Okay, that's so far Origen's on point right here. And then the next thing he says, he talks about the word home tree, which is prenos, which comes up right around in the next paragraph, where it says home tree, 58, right here. Okay, hupo prenon, under a home tree. And once again, the angel says, Mene gar o angelos tu teu ten romphion ekon prisai se meson. So he's responding in an acrostic manner. That's how you can tell when a text was an original composition. Now, you can write, you can actually translate text and make it more advanced or whatever. You can do all types of, this technically could possibly have come from a Hebrew thing, but it actually turns out that no one even claims that this is not even in the Hebrew Bible, because the Hebrew Bible, the Jewish people don't even think this was an original Hebrew text. This was just some forgery, as Origen says. So that's not even like this isn't even like a surprise, or like, this isn't even a big deal. This is not found in the Masoretic text. It's not found in not Orthodox. It's in Orthodox Bibles. It's not found in Protestant Bibles with the 66 books. It's not even in the King James, or it's in the Apocrypha section, actually. But you can see this acrostic type of language being done. Just to show you an example of a translation where you can go from an original composition to something pretty advanced. I want to show you something real quick. This is from, where is it? This is from Thomas Taylor's translation of the Orphic Hymns. And this is a translation. This is not an original composition. He says, night, Nyx, parent goddess, source of sweet repose, from whom at the first both gods and men arose. Repose arose. Here, blessed Venus, Cuprous, decked with starry light, and sleeps deep silence, dwelling Ebon night. You get the point. You can make stuff rhyme. You could do all types of stuff to text in a translation. A translation doesn't mean you just take the text and then go, this word means this, write that down. That word means this, write that down. This word. No, you have to actually take the text and make it sound like it makes sense. Because if you just translated word for word, it wouldn't make any sense. It would be gibberish. And that's what that's why you might find the word theosebes being translated from something less technical. That's a possible thing. So here, let's get to the game over. This is it. I'm just going to end it now. This is just to show you guys, like, Psalms is the biggest book in the Bible. The biggest book in the Bible. Psalm 119 is the biggest psalm in all of Psalms. It's the biggest chapter of the biggest book of the Bible. It's huge. Something I want to point out to you before we even compare the Greek to the Hebrew. I'm going to read both Greek and Hebrew right in front, right now. Thank you, Damon, for the 99-cent sticker. I think I just missed that. Tiger Shark, thank you for becoming a member. I appreciate you. And then there was one more after that, I think. Cross Bible. Oh, you know what? Before I even forget, Cross Bible, let me put your website in the description real quick. So just give me 1 second to do this. Give me 1 second to do this. This will be in the description so I don't forget. This will take a second. So right at the top is crossbible.com. And you can sign up and you can join his tier pages and stuff like that. He needs support. That's my buddy. So you did a great job with this website, by the way. I'm going to use it all the time. So thank you for that. Damon, thank you for the sticker. All right, back to the good stuff. All right, back to the good stuff. Before I even show you this, before I even go through the Greek and the Hebrew, before I even get there, there's something that has to be pointed out off the rip. This is an acrostic poem. We just saw sort of acrostic style phrases in Susanna. We just saw that, right? We know what it looks like. We know that Cicero writes about acrostic literature. The word acrostic comes from Greek. It means, I forgot what it means. It means akrostikos. It means highest verse. Cicero writes about how the Sibylline prophecies of the Roman Bible, basically, this was like their version of the Bible back in the ancient world. We lost it all. We only have a few texts that survive. The original ones are gone. But he talks about these Sibylline prophecies that are written in Greek hexameter, like Homer. And then he says that they're also acrostic. So they use like certain letters to spell out secret little codes within the text. This doesn't go that far. There's not like coding here, but it's very acrostic in the sense where, look at this. So I want to show you. Oh God, you guys with the super chats. Listen, I appreciate all these super chats. I love every one of you, but I want to keep flowing here. So I'm going to read these out, and then after this, I'm going to wait till we're done. Thank you, Walter, for becoming a member. Thank you, Brett, for becoming a member. Constellation Pegasus, thank you for the super chat. I'll answer this when I get done. And Rachel, thank you for becoming a member. All right. Back to the goods. So this is the Hebrew alphabet. Right? In order. Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, He, Vav, Zayin, Chet, Chet, Tet, Yod, Kaf, Lamed, Mem, Nun, Samik, Ayin, Pei, Zadi, Kof, Resh, Shin, Tav. There's 22 letters. There's 26 letters in Greek. So there's a difference, right? Everyone knows that. It's nothing crazy. Now, what if I told you that this book is divided into 22 chapters? Same amount as the alphabet. All right? You should be, if you're a truther, if you're really someone who wants truth, you should be saying, all right, tell me more. Half of the people watching this probably just go, don't tell me this. Don't tell me this. I love my dogma. Okay. So look at this. I want you to pay attention to this right here. This is the first letter of every single line and the entire book. Now watch this. The Hebrew alphabet in order, as I just read it out, Aleph, Bet, Gimel, and so forth. Watch this. The first verse starts with Aleph. And it does this kind of cool thing where it's like Aleph, and then it's two words, Bet. Aleph, 2 words, Bet. Aleph, 2 words, Bet. Aleph, 2 words, Lamed. Aleph, 2 words, Lamed. Aleph, 2, and it's like it does this like over and over. It's almost like a rapper. Like you ever heard Eminem go? That's what they're doing here. It's not rhyming, but it's the front letter starting off, and then it's like bouncing. Let me show you. So I still got my Hebrew alphabet up. Okay, good. Aleph, 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 Aleph. Then it changes up. Bet, 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 Gimel. See the third letter in the alphabet? Gimel, right? Gimel, 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 Daled, 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 Daled. He, 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 Vav, 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 Zion, 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 Chet, 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 Tav, Tav, or Tet, 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 Yod, 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 Kop, Kop, Kappa, Kop, 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 Lamed, 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 Mem, 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 None, 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 Samic, 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 Ayin, 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 Pe, 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 Zadi, 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 Kof, 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 Resh, 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 Shin, 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 Tav, 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 Tav. All right. Now, is it impossible to take a text that's originally written in Greek and do this? It is. It's not impossible. It's possible. But there's ways we can check this too. I'm gonna go even deeper. I'm gonna even go even deeper. Because as I showed you with Thomas Taylor's translation, you could do all kinds of things with translation. You could do all types of stuff. To change the first letter of the sentence, that's nothing. We're just getting started with that. We're just letting you guys know it starts off that way. So let's take a look. So Psalm 119, first thing I want to do is I want to look at the Hebrew. We'll look at the Greek second. So Psalm 119, and my Hebrew's not that good, but it is, okay. Ashri timimi darek haholakim betorah Yahweh. And that means, so that first word right here, Asher, means blessed or blessed. But when you put that little yod at the end, all of a sudden it becomes an interjection. It becomes blessed are they. It's like it's opening up with blessed are. It's like, that's just, I don't know. That's the best way I could explain it. Someone could probably explain it better than I could. That's the word. There's no other way. That's the word. Okay. Now, what's the Greek doing? All right. The Greek says, makaro Makarioi, oi, Makarioi, Abamoi, and Hodo, hoi, Paramonoi, and Nomo Kuriu. And that's that word right here, Makario. Makariu. Sorry about that. Makarioi. That means blessed. It's the same. So that word right there is in the nominative plural. So it's talking about people who are blessed. Blessed are those people. Blessed are they. It's the same exact word. So bless, and then amomoi means unblemished or blameless or something like perfect, right? Now, off the rip, what do you notice? They have the same word on verse 1. Makarioi, and Asheri. So they both say the word blessed right off the bat. Now, one of them's doing this acrostic thing. So you think they just got lucky that they can translate the word Makarioi to Asheri and it's going to fit with their little scheme? That's okay. So far, we have a miracle going. That they get handed, let's just assume that the Greek came first. And they hand us Makarioi. All right? What are you going to do? You're going to translate into the Asheri, because it's the same word. They both mean blessed are. Blessed are those. Blessed are thee. Right? So you have a word that starts with Aleph, and you get lucky. All right, so that's one of them. Let's go to the next one. The next one would be, let's do the Hebrew first. So same thing, Asheri, blessed. Makarioi. So right up. So okay, you have two words that are the same in both verses. Blessed are they. Blessed are they that keep. Blessed are they that keep. Right. So now you have two words that start off with Aleph. And on the Greek side, there's nothing acrostic going on at all. All right, that's two things we got going on. Let's go to so here's where things get like off the bet. This is like it's over at this point, right? Hate to say it, but I don't care because I just want to know what the truth is. I'm not on team Greek. I like the Greeks better, but I'm not on team Greek. All right, I'm on team. What are we looking at? That's what I'm on. So if you actually go down a little bit, I'm going to go back to some of these comparisons in a second. When it gets to Vav, it's lights out. Because the Vav by itself means and. Now, I don't know why the translators don't put that and in there. They do it sometimes, but sometimes they leave it out. I don't know why they do that. That's the American Standard Version. These all start with the word and. So for example, like, what is this? Vibani means and. I don't know what that word means, actually. Let's hold on a second. What does that word mean? And I will come to you. All right. So that word means and I will come to you. And then on the Greek side, you have kai eltoi ep emi to elios. So they both start with and. And kai fulaxo. I shall observe. Kai eperomen. It's a tongue twister. All of them start with either vav or kai, and. So think about this for a second. This is already going in perfect order of the acrostic poem. He then turns into Vav. You're telling me that they got passed down this text that has the word Kai in the perfect order to where the letter Vav shows up in the acrostic poem. That's a miracle. This translation, maybe it was 70 elders in Alexandria that translated it, because that's a miracle. That's a miracle. All right. So the next one I wanted to look at was Psalm 119:49. By the way, when you see 118, it's because the Septuagint has different numbering. And by the way, numberings didn't happen until way later. They didn't have numberings in the original. So 49 that I was looking at? Yeah, 49. 49. So 49 says, Menestati ton logon. So remember the word. All right. What does the Hebrew side say? The Hebrew side says Zakor dabar, which means remember the word. So remember are the first word of the sentence. So one of them's translated from the other. This is just like a basic IQ at this point, basic IQ test. Which one looks like it came from the one that lines up with the acrostic poem with a Zion in the front? It just falls in line perfectly, and they just happen to have this word that they can just translate perfectly that go along with their acrostic poem. I mean, are you grasping what I'm putting down? Let's do another one. Psalm 119:143. Psalm 119:43. So 119:143. So let's do the Greek side. Delipsis kai anake, heroson mi entolai su. Yeah. So it says, and then all right, let's look at the Hebrew side. 143. It says, Zar umasok mesayuni misuotika. I don't think I got that right. Saasuai. And then they both start with trouble and anguish. So that word in the Greek side on for 143, delipsis, afflictions. So that word is basically nominative singular feminine, and it means afflictions, or it means trouble or anguish. So they get this word, it falls down to them. A noun in the nominative singular feminine falls down from heaven, and their word that they can use to translate starts off with a zadi, sar, and there you go. The miracle continues throughout the entire chapter and book of this psalm. It's just a miracle. If this was a translation from the Greek, it's a damn miracle that all of these words that they get happen to allow them to perfectly translate to get this acrostic poem all the way down the bottom. Look, do you like the truth? Do you want to be virtuous like Socrates says? Do you want to be like the ancient Greeks, or do you want to be like a dogmatist churchgoer? It's on you. Whatever one feels better. I'm sure the dogma feels great. It's like heroin. Love it. All right. I think I got one more. 144, the next one right after this. So right down here, right over here, 144. We'll do the Hebrew side first. It is tzedek. I actually know that word because Sadok or Melchizedek, tzedek, edowataka, leolam, habinini, Yahweh. Or no, that's not Yahweh. That's We'aya. All right. It starts off with the righteousness. The righteousness. What does the Greek say? What's that word right there? You guys should know that. What's that first four letters? Dika. Dikaiosune. Dikaiosune ta parturia. What does that mean? It means righteousness, your righteousness testimonies, something like that. So they start off with the word dikaiosune, your righteousness. So that word is basically that word is a nominative singular feminine. That's what the diakusune. It means righteousness. And so Zedek and dikaiosune, once again, you're in the section of this text. There's an acrostic poem going down. You got Zadi, you got Zadi, you got Zadi. And then you get this word, you get these words these nouns, by the way, these are nouns that are perfectly translatable into very common words that are also the same exact word, but you can still continue to have your acrostic poem going. So I think I beat this horse dead purple at this point. I think it's pretty much clear that Psalm 119 is a Hebrew text. Go ahead, throw all your vegetables at me. All right, now, I don't really care what came first. Hebrew, Greek, whatever. First, we're talking about stories written about people from Israel. We're talking about stories about King David. We're talking about stories about people running around in Judea doing things. Of course, they're going to be using, at least to the very extent, at least they're going to have sources about this part of the world. And I don't know. One more thing I want to say about translations. The Septuagint that you're using right now is not people say this is the original, it's the oldest one. Even if you were right, that the Septuagint is the oldest Bible, and the Masoretic text is 10th century, that's what people will say. Leningrad Codex, 10th century. But the Septuagint is from 300 BC, they'll say. You're not comparing apples to apples here. You're comparing apples to oranges. The Leningrad Codex might be the oldest manuscript of the Bible that survives in Hebrew, but the Septuagint isn't the same. If you want to make that comparison, the oldest Septuagint manuscript is from the 4th or 5th century. And it's either the Codex Vaticanus, Codex Alexandricus, and Codex Sinaiticus. Those are the three manuscripts that your Septuagint that you read are putting together, where you get the 1856 Brenton's Greek Septuagint. Your Bible that you think is the original is from 1856. It's not from 300 BCE. How do we know that? First, let me get this name tag off of me. I don't like this name tag. Banners. Where do you get rid of this thing? What the hell? I can't get rid of my name tag? Whatever. So, how do I know this? Well, we have. First of all, by the way, I forgot to bring this up. If anyone's wondering if Psalm 119, if it's a 10th century text, we actually have a chunk of it from Qumran. It looks like this, and you can see if you look on the far right, on the letters are doing the same acrostic style. You see the mem and the tav. See that? Or the tav and then samik. I'm sorry. Looks like a mem. The old samik looks like a mem, by the way. All right. So you can see that's from first century. So at least at the first century, you have a manuscript that shows the acrostic Hebrew. But when we find the oldest Greek manuscripts, what do we find? They're not the same as the 1856 Septuagint that people are reading online. That's the church Bible. We find Ya'o in the oldest manuscripts. This is a Septuagint copy of Leviticus. And it doesn't say Kurios. It says, or Kurios, it says Ya'o. You understand what I'm saying? If you look up your 15, so this is Leviticus 4:27. Right? Let's do this. Let's go back to Cross Bible. Leviticus 4:27. Look. Kuriou, the Lord, of the Lord. Kuriou, that's genitive. Kuriou means of the Lord. And then there's Yahweh or Yehovah or Yahoah, whatever, however the hell it's pronounced. But it's this one lines up with the oldest Greek manuscript in the world, physical copy. That one lines up. This one has Kuriou. Why? Why would they do that? Because if you're going to combine the New Testament with the Old Testament and you want to make it uniform, why would you keep calling the God of the Old Testament Yahweh when the God of the New Testament is the Lord? So you change the entire Bible to make it uniform with the New Testament. You are reading a diddled Bible and calling it the original. You're reading a diddled Bible that the church diddled, and you're calling it the original. Should be cleansed from your sins for that. Just saying. You need to be purged for that. How dare you? How dare you push the Septuagint church Bible as the original and tell people it's the original? So there it is. By the way, if anyone's wondering, how do you know this wasn't someone in the 2nd century BC or 1st century BC didn't change this up? Well, we have contemporary authors. Diodorus of Sicily lived in the 1st century BCE. Now, if he's writing about the Old Testament God, because he knows about the Septuagint, he cites it, talks about Moses, Musaean, he calls it. This is what he writes. He writes, Yodaios Musaean ton Yao. That means among the Jews, Moses referred to the God invoked as Yahweh. And he uses that 3-letter version of Yahweh. So there's the Septuagint manuscript below as well, Yahweh. So he's Diodorus of Sicily, who hasn't seen the rise of Christianity yet, who's only has to his the only Bible that he can look at or read in his whatever library he's in, whatever he's got to his disposal, has Yahweh in it still. He's citing Yahweh. So your Septuagint is not the original. It's a doctored Bible. It's been tampered with. It's tampered evidence. It's just the truth. So I got other things I want to get to, but I'm looking at some of these comments, just taking a look. You could show this on Cross Bible's timeline feature. Oh yeah, you got the oh yeah, let me see. Let me pull that up. This is cool. This website is crazy, by the way. So I'm not familiar, but I'm guessing how to get around here is actually, let me do this. Let me do something else for a second. Oh, just give me a second. Timeline. Okay, here we go. This is it. Oh my God, this guy does so much research. That's Gnosis right there. Wow. So this dude has got a whole timeline of all the manuscripts and Bible books and when they were written and when they get added, all the different, look, he's got Alexandricus, Sinaiticus, Vaticanus. There's your Septuagint Bibles, guys. That's not the original. You could see up here. We're already in the 4th century when that starts to happen. So those we don't know what the original Septuagint was like. We have like little pieces of it. We don't know. We have no idea what it said, how different it was. But here you go. You got your proto. That's all the manuscripts in transit. And then it gets put together and compiled after 300 BCE. Right? Old Greek Septuagint Pentateuch. Judean scrolls. Dead Sea Scrolls, Samaritan Pentateuch. This is good stuff. Which brings me to my next topic. Before I went live, there was some chatter in the. I want to get into this. I also want to talk about someone who made a video about me. It's not very good, but it's fine. We'll talk about it. But Kip Davis said this. Gmirkin, so people were arguing in the chat about which came first. Is it the Hebrew? Is it the Septuagint? And Kip was, he's passionate. He's fighting the fight. But then someone brought up Gmirkin. And Kip says, Gmirkin does not, yet he posits wrongly that the Torah is a Hellenistic document. He's at least aware that it was first written in Hebrew. Now, before I even talk about this, discuss it, Gmirkin responds and says, hi, as I discussed extensively in Plato's Timaeus and biblical creation accounts. By the way, that is a book that you want to get. I have 3 of his books. 2 of them I have right here. The other one somewhere, I don't know where it is. These 2 right here are so convincing. They're both heavily peer-reviewed. They got through Routledge, Copenhagen International. This one is where you're going to get all of your ancient monotheist philosophers. When I say monotheist, I mean it in the definition of one creator who has the power over the cosmos, and then daemonic powers below it. Monism. These accounts. So it talks about Zoroaster. It talks about Heraclitus. It talks about Parmenides. It talks about it talks about biblical texts like the Garden of Eden, the 7-day creation, Plato's Timaeus, obviously. He gets into let's see. He talks about all these different. Okay, he's talking about Anaxagoras, pre-Socratic philosopher. Archelaus of Athens from 450 BC, pre-Socratic philosopher. By the way, Archelaus is one who taught Socrates. Diogenes, 440 BC, not Diogenes of Sinope, different Diogenes, pre-Socratic philosopher. Leucippus of Miletus, Democritus of Abdera, Plato of Athens, Socrates of Athens. And he gets into, these people are positing some sort of, sometimes they call it logos, or nous, or arche, or apeiron, or the different, or phusis, nature. But they're all sort of united in their worldview in the sense where they think it all came from one source. That there's one power. Plato calls it the demiurge, not the demiurge that the Christians are talking about. Plato's demiurge is a perfect creator who can't even be jealous, he said. Humans can't even get to this demiurge. Humans have to go through intermediary daemons who can then speak for humans, which is, different celestial angels and demons, whatever, all that stuff, whatever you want to call it. This book right here, Plato and the Creation of the Hebrew Bible, is not it's a lot harder to read, but it's the law codes. Because when I first heard about this, I was like, that's interesting. And I was like, I'm willing to probably accept that there's probably some influence by those guys. But the law codes are Near Eastern. That's just, everyone knows. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. That's Hammurabi. Everyone knows that. Well, this book really puts that down. This book really argues that like 2/3 of the mundane and sacred laws in the Torah have overlap from Athenian laws and Plato's laws. And then those very laws aren't found in Near Eastern law codes. There's differences. There's more differences in Near Eastern law codes to the Torah than there is with Athenian law codes. And so to just think about it like this, even if they both had overlap with each other, Near Eastern law codes and the Greeks law codes, those ancient Assyrian Babylonian law codes are going way back in time when the Greeks are contemporary with them right now. Those are the law codes that Plato just wrote 50 years before this. So you can almost use Occam's razor. What's the simpler What's the simpler one? The one that's in use, the one that that's popular now? Are they going to draw from that? Or are they going to go way back in time and borrow from people that they never even met and don't even hardly even, there's no text surviving barely. And unless they're not doing archaeology, they're not surviving. Think about it like this. Do you think our law codes are closer to 1500s England than they are to 19th century United or 18th century United States or 19th, 20th century United States or, something like whatever, 20th century Canada or something? Yeah, that's actually a good one because we're getting more progressive, borrowing from Canada. What do you think makes more sense? That we're borrowing from 15th century England or we're borrowing from 20th century Canada legalizing weed and shit? What makes more? I'm not saying that's an end all be all, just something to think about. So Gmirkin responded, it says, as I discussed extensively in Plato's Timaeus and the biblical creation accounts, Routledge 2022, 84-87, all indications point to the LXX Pentateuch as a wooden translation from the Hebrew. Now, this is very unbiased source who is arguing that the Hebrew Bible is a Hellenistic text produced at some time after the creation of the Alexandrian Library, using sources from the Alexandrian Library. So there were Jews there were Greeks there were Platonists there were Pythagoreans there were all kinds of people there, Magi, they're all getting there. This is the place to be. This is the ancient LA or something. This is the spot. This is the spot. Anybody who's anybody is in Alexandria. So the argument has something behind it. All right. He said, see also my historical context of the LXX and its Hebrew vorlage in Cook and Coates, the Septuagint south of Alexandria. I do argue that the Pentateuch was published in both Hebrew and Greek in 273, 272 BCE, effectively contemporary. So he's saying that they came, let me just finish reading this. This is paralleled by the famous canon of Egyptian law, simultaneously published by Darius I in 8 volumes in both Aramaic and Demotic. It's a great point, by the way. This project occupied 16 years, 518, 503 BCE, with the Egyptian laws collected by warrior, priest, and scribal classes of Egypt. Yeah, this is what they did. This is common. This is what they would do. They would write laws and they would do them in different languages at the same time. The Etruscan laws, the 12 code, or the Roman laws, the 12 tables, are heavily borrowing from Pythagorean and Greek sources. They're like, your laws are awesome. We want some of that Greek law. And then you find in Rome, ancient Rome, that they call it the 12 tables. So this is sort of like a universal project that's happening all over the Mediterranean, where people are looking for the divine ancient law codes. And they're updating them, but they're always saying that they're older than they are. These go back to the gods. These go back to Hercules. Aeneas is the one who told us about this one. Moses said this. Hercules said this. Aeneas said this. That's how they do it. This is just normal run-of-the-mill law in the ancient world. So I'm convinced by Gmirkin. I would pay a scholar. If you're a scholar and you're watching this, I will pay you a contract to read Russell Gmirkin's book and write a report on it on why it's wrong or right. What does heavily peer-reviewed mean? Routledge. That's no joke. There's different places do different peer review. That's what that means. You know this. So I don't know I know you don't like Gmirkin, even though you won't read his book. Look, Kip, let's just cut the shit right now. You know that you've never read Plato. You've never read Aristotle. You never read Demosthenes. You never read Lycurgus. You never read any Athenian law. You never read anything Greek. You never read Homer. You never read Hesiod. You never read Plutarch. You never read Euripides. How the fuck would you be able to judge if this is right or wrong? You can't. The same thing you say about Ammon. He doesn't read Hebrew, so how can you know if the Hebrew's not original? The same applies to you. And look, You don't have to be. You could think this is bullshit just because you based on what you know and you never been taught this. My whole time getting a PhD from Peter Flint, by the way, the whole time getting a PhD. I'm just kidding. But yeah, the whole time getting a PhD in that theology program, no one ever told me this. So it has to be wrong. Fine, hold that opinion. But if you're going to go around and have a strong stance on this, and you're going into public areas online and telling people that Gmirkin is wrong, then you should know the material. You should at least read this book. Maybe don't read Plato. Fine, don't read Plato. You have no idea what he's comparing here. You have no idea what is in Plato's laws. How the fuck would you know that he's right or wrong if you don't know what's in Plato? But fine, don't read Plato. At least read this. And trust the peer reviewers that they didn't just faultily put this through. Because so peer review doesn't mean it's correct, right? We all know this. When someone gets a book peer review, it doesn't mean it's automatically correct and everyone needs to believe it. People are arguing cases and stuff. They're making opinion, they're throwing out their hypotheses and theories, and those don't necessarily get proven or demonstrated in the book. But when you start bringing in law codes, it's either correct or incorrect. It's either going to get through peer review or it's not. So if you're going to read this book and tell me it's right or wrong, you have to trust the peer review then, because that's what he's talking about. Specific law in Plato, in Aristotle, in other areas that has precedent over the Torah. It's either right or it's not. That's it. It's either correct. Either he faultily used these sources and got through peer review somehow, and you just magically were the only person who noticed it without even having to be just magic powers. That's wrong. Even though I won't read it. I don't have to read it, and I won't even read the material that it's about. But it's wrong. I don't know how you have the magic powers to do that. No offense. But if you do, then that's amazing. You should start doing this for other books. I am in conversation with the scholarship. The scholarship demonstrates that the Hebrew law codes are heavily grounded. Okay. This is part of the scholarship. And he doesn't say it. I don't think he ever says that there's none of it as grounded in Neo-Syrian law like Hammurabi. But do you this is what I mean, Kip. You can be correct right now. You could possibly be correct right now. That doesn't also mean that the Greeks didn't have similar law codes at the same time as the Torah is being written. So if they're grounded in this, if they're both grounded in this like Mediterranean, Mesopotamian world order, where these certain law codes are common throughout all these lands, one of them, just because one of them has precedent over some of the stuff in the Hebrew Bible, you still have to read Plato and see where his arguments are. You're still doing this thing where I just know he's wrong because what I know is what I know, and anything outside of what I know, you're not being scientific, dude. Straight up. You're not. This is not a way. That's not science. What you're doing. You're not even willing to look at the text. You just magically know, because I'm in conversation with the scholarship, and the scholarship is always being updated. That I can say with confidence. And I'm not even saying he's right, or that I know for sure he's right. I'm just saying it bothers me. It fucking bothers me when people have strong opinions on stuff that they haven't read. Doesn't it bother you too? When you see Michael Jones in Inspiring Philosophy talking about shit he has no idea? Do you want to look like that? I'm just saying, dude. Go ahead, do it. Be that guy. Thanks for the super chat. Old Greek clips, retaliation, Gnostic broody. So, Kip, you're willing to, I'll let you jump on. If you want to keep dropping comments, you can jump on if you want. We can discuss this. But this is just the facts, dude. You haven't read any of Gmirkin's books. You don't know the material that he's writing about. What am I supposed to think? I'm supposed to take your word? Scholarship is always being updated. You want to jump on so we can just have this talk real quick? But Kip, you're making a statement right now without reading the book. How do you know that he hasn't talked? The way I understand it from when I read this is that he's not denying that there's Near Eastern influence. You're jumping to some conclusion. You're acting like he's saying 100% of it came from Plato. Plato wrote it himself, damn near. This is just. It's so like pointless to even have this talk. I think you're going to feel stupid when you read his book. I think you are. Because you're making all these assumptions about it. Gmirkin's here too. I discussed the Pentateuch use of Old Babylonian and Middle Assyrian laws in Plato. See, that's what I remember. That's what I thought when I remember reading it. You're talking about Plato also being influenced by the same Near Eastern, but Plato's closer in time to the Hebrew Bible. And this is another thing that I don't understand about people who date the Hebrew Bible before the Hellenistic era. They don't practice the laws in the Hebrew Bible, in the Torah, until 150 BCE. They're doing the exact opposite shit. These are law codes written for everyday people. There's a bunch of mundane laws written in the Torah for slaves and slave owners and farmers and all types of Sabbath laws and regulations for regular people. Who is it written for? If it's going back to 600 BCE, who is it written for? Why is there no evidence of it? How come no one talks about it? How come there's no sources that mention this? You're not going from you're not being scientific. You're not going from the known to the unknown. Like I was talking to Jonathan Adler. He says, we know we have the use of the Torah being practiced in the Maccabean period. We start there. We go to the 2nd century BC. We got it. The Bible's there. People are practicing it. 3rd century BCE, we don't have evidence of them practicing it then, but we just have fragments and we have letters of Aristus and we have like stuff that sort of says that it got compiled and translated around this time. Before the 3rd century BCE, forget about it. It's gone. It's out of the record. It's not there. It doesn't exist. It's just theology. It's just the Bible said this. The Bible said Josiah made reforms. Therefore, it must have happened. That's what I'm getting. Where's the scientific? Where's the evidence? Where is the going from the known to the unknown? Where's the data? Why is it in 450 BCE? Do you think Torah was the law of the land in 450 BCE? Really? This is the Second Temple period, which, by the way, the Second Temple period doesn't exist. There is no Second Temple. There's just temples. That's another theological BS statement. But what I'm trying to say is, why are they minting coins with Athena and Zeus on them in 450 BCE? When the 10 Commandments of Moses specifically prohibits producing images, and these are images that are going to go in every single person's hand in the country. Every single person is going to touch these things with Athena on them, and they're looking. And the talk about they can't be influenced by the Greeks. They're minting the same coins as the Greeks. We have physical evidence of this. Physical evidence of this, not just my theory. We have physical evidence that you can touch with your hand that the Judeans in Jerusalem were influenced by the Greeks, not even in the Hellenistic period, in 450 BCE. And that's just a fact. You can't even debate that. That's not true. That's just a straight up fact. Kid, did you say you were to jump on or no? I definitely want to air this out if you want to, but most people don't want to do this for some reason. Everybody just wants to talk shit and walk away. Let's see. Let's pull up this Athena coin. I love this coin. Let's take a look at Athena. in 450 BCE, where is it? Here it is. Thank you, Wikipedia, for a cool page. Wikipedia's getting better. All right. Look at this. The Greeks can't influence the Jerusalem. That's a different world. The Semitic speakers are over here, and the Indo-European speakers are over here, and they don't have anything in common. Even though the Medes and the Persians are all throughout the Middle East, and even though the Greeks and the Phoenicians are trading with each other on these islands, and there's all this evidence that the Phoenicians all over the Mediterranean, they're setting up colonies in the West. The idea that there's Semitic world and Indo-European world are two different things is so heavily debunked. If you're still in that mindset, you're just behind. You're just like 50 years behind in scholarship. So I don't know. Here we go. Look at this. That's Hezekiah, 350 BCE. That's his coin. Cool. We got evidence of Hezekiah. That's awesome. That's dope. I love evidence. We know Hezekiah was a real king. That's cool. Look at this one. Athenian silver obol. This is actually the Athenian version of it, though. Let's see. Do they have the other one? So this is okay. So this person writes. Let's see. What source is this? The history of Jews and Judaism. Minting. Oh, this is it. Minting of coins in Jerusalem during the Hellenistic periods by Yehoshua Zlotnik. Helmeted head of Athena in Judea. The olive sprig of the Athenian coin was replaced by the lily. And instead of Greek Athens, the Hebrew words Yehud were there. Let's see if we can get an example of this. Let's see if we get an example. So this is just, I don't understand. Jonathan was stressing how big of a deal this is. Before even I thought about how big of a deal. I didn't even realize how big of a deal this is, because it is just game over type of evidence of who is influencing who. When you're minting coins in the image of another kingdom or area, populace, that's influence. That's hard to get around that. So they got these coins all over the Mediterranean, and as far as the Persians are doing it too. From what I gathered, Persians are doing a lot of borrowing. So some of these Persian kings, like Darius, would actually import Greek philosophers to stay at his court. Heraclitus is one of them. Apparently, one of the sources says Pythagoras was one of them. Pythagoras came to Persia. He learned, it says, under Zoroaster. I don't know how true that is. That sounds like a stretch. Might be possible. It said Pythagoras traveled to Egypt and Babylon. Okay. I got to ask you this. I noticed this about Jonathan Adler and Gad Barnea are cutting edge, bringing new things to the table that are making me think more. I disagree still, but they're bringing some things to the table that I never heard yet, and I thought they're bringing some good things to the table. And then, what's with Gmirkin getting the whole nah? Why are they? Is it because they have 3 letters next to their name? Is that what it is? Because it just seems like some people aren't willing to look at evidence and arguments. They're only looking at, is the person have credentials? That's not science. Someone with 3 letters next to their name can say all types of things. And just because if they're saying similar things to another guy, and this person gets treated with, no, that's crazy. And then the other person gets, this is some cutting edge stuff. It's making me rethink my whole entire paradigm now. To me, it just seems like you're not looking at the arguments. You're not looking at the evidence or the arguments, unwilling to read the books, unwilling to look at the data, and just going with, well, this person has 3 letters next to their name, this person doesn't. I think that's unfair. I think that's totally unfair. Gold Surfer says, look up the 42 laws of Mott. from Kemet, Egypt. Moses learned or fabricated his laws from them. He was learned in all wisdom of Egypt. Acts 7:22. Now, the 42 laws of Mott is interesting because it's obviously a pretty famous law code, but it's also very old. So this is another thing. Like, people will go 42 laws of Mott, Moses, boom, they do this straight line. But there's also law codes in between. Like, it's the same thing that I'm seeing with the Hebrew Bible. They're going, oh, Hammurabi, boom, all the way. But like, wait, you're not looking at the law codes that are in between that also might be borrowing from Hammurabi. So when you find that the closer ones also have the same, like the lex talionis, the eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, and you find out that Latins have that, Greeks have that, what's more likely? Remember the Canada, America thing? What's more likely? We're borrowing from 1500s England, or are we borrowing from 20th century Canada? What's the more, like, what makes more sense? Do you borrow from people 500 years before you lived, 700 years before you lived, or do you tend to borrow from people that live at the same time as you? You know? Who am I? What do I know? I'm just some guy. But, you know, there are certain circles of scholarship that are taught, or they're trained that the Hebrew Bible is this super old thing that just goes all the way back to 1000 BC, as Dan McClellan says. Not sure where you get that from. There's no evidence of it. It's just kind of a cool thing to say. People cheer for it. You get a bunch of Christians that like you, even though you don't believe in the miracles. You might get asked to speak at some SBL thing. I don't know. I'm just saying. Maybe there's something, but maybe it's the cool thing. I don't know. I have no idea why people want to push the Bibles back as far as possible. I was just talking to somebody who knows Homeric Greek, and they were saying that Homer is probably way older than 720 BCE, based on the text of Homer. It's probably Bronze Age. And I'm like, well, why do we date it to the Bronze Age? Because there's no evidence of it in the Bronze Age. So they just go with when the evidence shows up. So you don't find like dogmatic scholars, the classic scholars going, hey, did you say that Homer's 720 BCE? Well, just so you know, there's older layers in there, and it goes back to 1400 BCE, and you need to know that. And you need to be taught better. You need to be corrected. It's like, you don't see anyone doing that. It's only the Bible. The Bible is the only special book where there's people that will, if you say, here, the evidence says this book shows up in 300 BCE. Before 300 BCE, we don't, no one talks about the Torah. The Torah is not mentioned. They're not practicing the Torah. It's not a thing. Elephantine, they're in a city for 200 years. Nobody says a thing about Torah. So you go, okay, let's date it 300 BC. And then there's always some Bible scholar that pokes their head out and goes, but wait a minute, there's older parts. Where's that for Homer? Homer doesn't get that treatment. Homer easily is a Bronze Age text, according to my friend who knows Homeric Greek. Homer's super old. Most of it, not even parts of it. Most of it, from what I was told, most of Homer is like 1200 BCE. Most of it. It just doesn't get written down. It just gets passed along and gets updated and changed. And then by 720 BCE, it starts showing up in the text. It starts getting cited by people. 7th century BCE, you got people mentioning it. You got iconography of it. You got vases with Homeric scenes. 5th century BCE, Herodotus is talking about it. Thucydides is talking about it. All the historians and the philosophers are all citing it. So you go with the evidence. Homer, you don't date Homer to the archaic language in Homer. You don't do that. It's only with the Bible people do this, because the Bible's special and the Bible has to be old. So no one's saying you should do this, Kip. No, I don't even think if you read his book, you would be convinced. I think with where you're at, I think you probably wouldn't be convinced. But at least if you read the book and you know what he's talking about and you knew which law codes he's referring to, do you even know which law codes he's referring to at all? How, like, you don't even, oh my God. If you don't even know what he's talking about, how do you have such a strong opinion on it? Most people, like your buddy, the Septuagint scholar you had on, he said, I never read Gmirkin, so I don't have anything to say on that. Isn't that the right thing to say? Instead of making sure everyone in every comment section you go to who mentions Russell Gmirkin has to be told that he's wrong. Just like Dennis MacDonald, his parallelomania, even though I'd never read Euripides, I never read Homer, I never read Aristophanes, I never read Aeschylus, I never read any of the stuff that the theory of mimesis is posing. Probably never read Dennis's book. I don't think you have, be honest. Because I think we would talk about it by now. But you know for sure that Dennis MacDonald is parallelomania. Because I didn't even tell you this, dude. I was watching Deep Drinks one time. Just watching Deep Drinks. I like to watch Deep Drinks. It's a good show. And somebody in the comments was like, Dennis MacDonald, man, I love his book. And boom, 2 seconds later, Kip Davis says, that's parallelomania. Without having never read Euripides, never read Homer, never read Aeschylus, never read Aristophanes, doesn't know any of the Greek sources, but somehow you know that Dennis is parallelomania. Magic! It's magic! It's amazing. I wish I had the magic to do that too. It's magic. I would pay to see someone read this book and find out what the peer reviewers got wrong. Find out what these peer reviewers got wrong, because they had to be wrong. They can't be correct. This book has to be wrong. It's not what I was taught, so it has to be wrong. All right, let's read some super. Damn, there's 800 people watching this shit. Am I that good? Am I that funny or good? Come here, doggy. Say hello. You taking a nap? Stop biting stuff. She likes to bite everything. All right, so let's go back to these super chats that I missed. Constellation Pegasus says, no ancient Hebrew books, all written in Greek times. I don't know what you mean by that, because these are stories written about Israel. Even if Ammon was right, and this is an original Greek composition that was translated into Hebrew, even if that was correct, which I don't think it is, you would still have to admit at some point in time they have to be using some sources from Israel that are written in some Hebrew. I don't know. This is another Occam's razor thing. What's the more likely scenario? That you have texts written in Hebrew by Hebrews and then brought to Alexandria, and then they put it together and compile it and update it? That makes the most sense. So that's that. But thank you for the super chat. Rachel Myers, thank you for becoming a member. Oh, I forgot about something, and I'm not done yet. I'm going to catch up to these super chats as I'm doing right now. Go ahead, take a break, go get something to drink. But I got something that I want to talk about monotheism. If someone did a video about me, it's not flattering. It makes me look really bad, but it's not what you think. So we're going to clear it up and talk about it. All right. Some drama. So there is some drama coming up. Mark Lane says, the Christ used and taught his disciples demonology and to have no priesthood. Maybe. I mean, they do talk about Beelzebub. That's a demon. So maybe there's some sort of, I think it means like Lord of the Flies or something. Maybe there's some sort of demonology class happening in Jesus' school. I wouldn't be shocked. Who knows? Dr. Wolves with the $20. Thank you. I watched one of your videos a year ago. I questioned you in the comments. You took the time to respond, including the names of the sources they checked out. Wow. I released you are someone to take seriously. You don't be it. I really appreciate that. I think there's a few times where people leave something in the comments, and if I see it And they'll go, what's their source for this? If I got it, I'll send it to them. So I remember doing that quite a few times. So I'm not sure which time you're talking about, but I do that quite often. Someone will go, Ishtar died for 3 days? No way. I'll go, here, Samuel Noah Kramer translation. Boom. There you go. I didn't make it up. It's just what the guy wrote, and it's what he translated from the Sumerian. Anyways, thank you for that. Complitzier, thank you for the super chat. Old Greek crypts. Retaliation. Gnostic broody. Hell yeah. Old Greek crypts. I think it's time to have a glass. All right. All right, let's go. Let's keep going. Complitzier, thank you for the super chat. Jesus Tales. Gnostic informant and Russell Gmirkin. Either of you handle Kip's question about the Mosaic laws being used in other books of the Bible? What books? That's not even true. The prophets don't really reference the Torah at all. And I asked Kip Davis, I can't believe you're asking me this. I asked Kip Davis for a clear citation from one of the prophets about the Torah. He says, LOL in caps. I don't like showing people screenshots, but I don't like showing people conversations, but I will tell you what happened, because Kip, you know this happened. You said LOL in cap locks. You laughed at me. This is nonsense. Everyone knows that the prophets are citing the Torah. And then I said, okay, let's see it. You sent me a passage in Jeremiah where he uses one word that shows up in Genesis, a similar word, the word that meaning for chaos. That's not a citation. I would even go as far as say it's possible that he's drawing from some similar type of story, maybe. But that's not a citation is when someone says, as Moses says in the Torah, boom, boom, boom. It never happens. Never. So I don't know what you're talking about, Jesus Tales, but I'm glad you brought that up, because I got laughed at in the group chat. Laughed at. I go, this must be something that if it's that funny, there should be a whole bunch of them. Zero. Just like there's no one ever mentions Moses or Abraham or Isaac or Jacob or Noah anywhere. Not just an elephantine, which is the perfect time capsule for 200 years. Not just an elephantine, but not in Jerusalem, not in Babylon, not in Syria, none of the Phoenicians, none of the Greeks, none of the Egyptians, none of the Hittites. Nobody mentions any of those people until the Hellenistic period. Klimpitzier says zero evidence, just like in ufology. Gold Surfer says, look up the 42 laws of Ma'at from Kemet, Egypt. Moses learned or fabricated his laws from them. I don't think so. They're a lot different. There's probably some overlap. It's been a while since I looked at them, because let me just pull them up. I don't even know if this is a good source, but I'll just, whatever, just for the sake of time. Hail Usek Nemet, who comes forth from Anu. I have not committed sin. I have not committed a robbery with violence. I have not stolen. This is just standard law codes. That's another thing, though. Somebody might see, if you only know Assyrian and Jewish law codes, you're going to go, whoa, these line up. But then you look at every single law code that are out there, and they all line up. They all have don't steal. They all have don't sin. They all have this. This is standard run-of-the-mill ancient law codes. I have not slandered anyone. I have not been angry without just cause. I have not. It's just this is the shit you see. It's like there's an ancient Bronze Age world order, then there's an ancient Iron Age world order, then there's like a classical period world order, and these world orders are getting like the Augustan period. When Augustus came along and made all his reforms, everyone followed suit. Everyone started following the Augustan reforms. It was just the way it was. That's how this stuff works. But if you only know one thing, if you're only like all your history, so let me tell you something. I used to think I was so smart when I read when I was a Christian, and I read the Bible cover to cover. I used to think I was so good at history because I read the Bible cover to cover. Because I knew the Bible, I thought the Bible had a lot of history in it. Because the Bible mentions the Babylonians, it mentions the Assyrians, it mentions the Persians, it mentions the Greeks, it mentions the Romans. I thought I had a good historiography lesson from the Bible. That is so off. They're not even correct. Like I'll give you an example. Alexander's kingdom didn't splinter into 4 kingdoms. It splintered into like 24 satrapies at first. And then those 24 satrapies sort of made alliances with each other. And then it becomes like 7 or 6. And then it's 5. And then it's 3. And then it's always changing. But what didn't just break off into 4 like Daniel says. The Bible gets history wrong so much. So you might be like, oh, I know who Antiochus IV is. I read Maccabees. Oh, I know who Belteshazzar is. I read Daniel. I know who, like, you might think you know history because there's like some references to kings and stuff in the Bible, but it's not. You're not even 1% there. Now, I used to be that guy. I used to think I knew history because I knew the Bible, and then I could compare it to Assyrian laws or something and read Sumerian books and go, that looks like it matches. There's so much more out there other than the Bible. There's so much more out there. Anyways. Neil Conway. I respect Kip, Neil, and Russell. Science grows. I respect that answer. Thank you for the super chat. LT. Thank you for the $2. We keep learning through our mistakes. No biases. That's virtue. That's arete, baby. I like that. Chris Wood with the $9.99 says, to what degree do you think Platonists were intentionally influenced, not intentionally, and early Christianity in order to affect social-political? Well, Plato himself doesn't see Judaism. He never mentions Judaism. He never talks about Moses. Neither does Aristotle. I don't even think Theophrastus does. I think the first person to mention Judaism or Moses is Demetrius, who's Plato, Aristotle, Theophrastus, Demetrius. He's like the 4th down from Plato. None of those guys talk about Judaism or Moses ever. But then the Jews in the 2nd and 3rd century BCE or 1st century BCE, they make the claim that Plato was borrowing from Moses, even though he never mentions Moses. What does that tell you? What does that tell you? They're reading Plato and they're seeing Moses in it. They're going, Plato had to have borrowed from Moses. It's the same laws. But Plato never mentions Moses. Something to think about. Because what would give you the right to even claim Plato was borrowing from Moses if there wasn't something there? It's one of the things I think about all the time. Thank you for that super chat. Oh, and by the way, yeah, that's what I meant. I answered that. Yeah, thank you for that. Tiger Shark, pour out one for your homie Dionysus. Absolutely. All right. Maniac March. What has Amon said when you told him your critiques? What do you think about other? So I love Amon. He'll be mad at me for this for sure. Sorry, man. The devil made me do it. The devil doesn't like liars. Oh, no, I'm just saying. Oh, I didn't mean that slipped. No, just jokes aside. He doesn't care. He knows that. Yeah, he knows this. I know for a fact we had this conversation. He knows about this, the Yahoo thing. I took him through the evidence and I showed him systematically that your Septuagint that you're showing on Lady Babylon is not the original. He knows that. That I could confirm. As far as Psalm 119 and the acrostic stuff, I don't even think he cares. I don't think he cares. I think he's just going to say that at some point they back translated it and then made it acrostic somehow. Some magic shit when that went down. I don't know. Good question. We'll find out, I guess. Ligma FPV. Top 5 books for an introductory to intermediate level ancient history enthusiast with a strong interest in development of Judaism and Christianity. Oh, I got the first book for you. The first book for you is here it is right here. Hold on. This you have to get. You have to get this book. I've had this book for a long time, and it's been the dog bit it. Look at that. Anyways, this book right here, Corey's Ancient Fragments of the Phoenician, Carthaginian, Babylonian, Egyptian, and Other Authors. It's from Isaac Preston Corey. I think he lived in the 17th century. He compiles these rare fragments. So these are rare fragments that aren't found. They're like lost fragments that only show up in certain texts. Like Eusebius is a big source for him, but there's also other fragments in here too. I'll give you a rundown of what's in here. So you have the fragments of Sancho Niathan. That's the Bronze Age priest from Phoenicia, from Beirut. You have Porphyry, Philo of Byblos. You have the Tyrian Annals, extracted from Dios, Menanders, Periplus of Hanno, Voyage of Hanno, the commander of the Carthaginians. Berosus, Megasthenes, Abinus, Apollodorus, Alexander Polyhistor, Josephus, Athenaeus, Clement Seneca, Chaldean fragments, Nicholas of Damascus, Sibylline oracles, Eupolemus, Trogus Pompeius, Justin, Thales, Diodorus Sicily, Herodotus, Damascius, Agathias, Eratosthenes, Julius Africanus, Manetho, Berosus, and Euhemerus, Hecataeus of Abdera. Hecataeus of Abdera is in here too. This is I found this. This is a big one. Stobaeus, Sallust, Epistle of Demetrius Philarius to the king. Get this book, man. This is a crazy book with crazy fragments from the ancient world. It's all in one spot. I read the whole thing. That's one. Introduction to Intermediate Level Ancient History Enthusiasts with a strong interest. Okay. I'm also going to recommend. Where is it? Let's see. Where did I put that book? There's a book by Peter Green that I had, or is it Peter Green? Something Green. Oh, it's right there. Hold on one second. Let me pull it up. It's called Alexander to Actium. Big book. One of my favorite books of all time. I've learned so much from this book. It basically covers all of the major social, religious, and cultural issues or whatever from the time of Alexander the Great all the way to the time of Augustus. So it's a 300-year span of just information, just completely useful. Like it talks about the astronomers of the times, the different, like the phalanx and the legions and all that stuff. So there's like war stuff in here. Talks about different poets, Apollonius, Callimachus. Talks about the beef between Callimachus and Apollonius that's in here. They were like Tupac and Biggie beefing, writing shit about each other. Talks about the funeral games of Alexander the Great. Talks about Rome on the rise during this, during that period of the 3rd century BC. End of the 3rd century, start of the 2nd century BCE. Ptolemies, Seleucids, all that stuff. The whole period is all. This is it. Like this is the best book in the world you're going to get for that period. That's my favorite period too. That's the craziest period of all in ancient history. Is the period between Alexander and Augustus. That's where the most shit happens. That's where all the famous, Cleopatra, Julius Caesar, Alexander. It's all right there. The Colossus of Rhodes was built around that time. I think it was like 280 BCE when Demetrius was fighting a war with Ptolemy, and Demetrius lost, and his siege ships got got stuck behind, and the Rhodinians used them. They melted the metal down, and they built the Colossus of Rhodes out of it. So they built it from war wreck. That's a cool story. That's 2. Oh, you got to get this. You got to get these. Bam. You got to get the pseudepigrapha. Because this is all the extra biblical stuff that you don't get in the Bible, but it's very, like, there's like Orphic fragments in here. The, like Aristobulus, I flip right to it. Oops, I ripped it. Aristobulus of Alexandria, 2nd century BCE, Jewish writer from Alexandria. It's got fragments of the pseudo-Greek poets, Ezekiel the tragedian, Theodotus. It's got the Orphic Hellenistic synagogue prayers, odes of Solomon. Let's see, Demetrius the chronographer. This is like 3rd century to 1st century BC Alexandrian Judaism. And then the other book just has like Sibylline oracles, Enoch 3, Vision of Ezra, all these rare apocryphal texts or pseudepigrapha texts. That's another one you got to get. Here's another one too. Tony Burke's collection of New Testament apocrypha. I don't know I lost the cover of this one. This is one too. There's 3 of them here. So that was Old Testament stuff that you just heard. All the same exact thing I just said, but New Testament now. So now we're talking about 2nd, 3rd, 4th century Christian books, like the dialogue of the Revealer of John, the story of Joseph of Arimathea, the healing of Tiberius, the book of Bartholomew, a homily on passion and resurrection. You got the history of Simon Cephas, the legend of the 30 pieces of silver, the life and martyrdom of John the Baptist, on the priesthood of Jesus, hospitality of Dismas. And then finally you got preaching of Philip, preaching of Simon Cephas, Acts of John, Acts of Andrew, Philemon, Dream of the Road, the story of the image of Edessa. Like I said, more rare ancient Christian stuff. And what is that, 4? I give you 4 there. Here we go. This is it. I'll top it off with this one. Mary Beard, Religions of Rome. There's a lot of Christian stuff in here too. So it's not just pagan stuff. There's a lot of Christian sources in here too. Like what Christianity in Rome, that kind of stuff. What were the Christians in Rome doing? But it's got it's just all the religions of Rome, Mithraism, the cult of Attis, the Phrygian Mother, the Great Mother, some of the Etruscan influences on the Roman religion, the calendars. There's a lot of sources in here. Like this is a source book, the second one, just pure sources. And then this one is the history. So that was a cool question. I like that. Thank you for that. Put these back. Let's see. What do we got? I think I lost my spot. Here we go. Kip the Script. Nice. Deflame Nutrition by Dr. David Seaman. Oh, for a second. She's biting the books again. Can't bite that. Can't bite that. All right. So, practically speaking, why does it matter which came first, whether Greek or Hebrew? I don't think it matters that much to me. It's an interesting discussion just to know, because I want to know things. I want to know what the truth is. It doesn't matter. What matters more to me is what is the influences on them. When were they written? What is it? What's behind them? The language is so secondary. It really is. It's so secondary compared to like what the hell was going on. What is influencing? What's the philosophical tenets? Pythagoreans were monists. They believed in this one perfect being that is in control of the cosmos. Is that what's behind this? Is that why they're tending to? Is that why they're combining Yahweh and El, and they're making this Adonai, Almighty God, El Elyon? What's going on with this? So that's what I don't know. That matters more to me than what language it was first written in. The language is secondary to me. Doesn't really say much. Okay. Why won't the Bible scholars read the Greek sources? I have no idea. They all do. No, there are some that do. Just there's a lot that don't. Like I was just reading a book. I was just reading a few pages from a book about the historical Jesus, and Robin Faith Walsh opens up right off the bat. It was like Pausanias says this, Plutarch says this, Pliny the Elder says this, this person says this, Menander says that, Cicero said this, Cicero, and she's just drawing from all these Greek sources and like showing the cultural milieu of the time. So I think it's very helpful to know what the hell is going on in the time period you're studying. Even if it's Second Temple Judaism, don't you want to know what the Greeks were doing in that time period? Don't you want to know what Egyptians were doing in that time period? Don't you want to know what Phrygians are doing in that time? Don't you want to know what they're all doing at that time period to give you a better understanding of the time period? Duh. Nope. We have to put a force field around Judea, and we're only going to look at the Bible. Okay. You look silly, but go ahead. Have fun. Maybe you get paid more that way. Maybe you're seeing something I'm not, and it's better for you that way. I don't know. It makes no sense. Wave of Mutilation says, what do you think of Brian Mierescu's book about the psychedelic use of literature? It's fascinating stuff, and that dude's a smart dude. I like to have a conversation with him and get some more about some of his information on that. I like the guy. I think he's cool, and I think there's probably a lot there. It's just the sources in, as far as like the primary sources, we have that source about Marcus Magus putting psychedelics in the Eucharist. So there is something there. I wonder, and he's looking at the Eleusidian mysteries, and there is sources that suggest that Christians did borrow stuff from the Eleusidian mysteries. I'll give you a prime example. Saint Demetrius, he has a big church built after him. There's a famous story that comes along with him. And the story goes that he was a devotee of Demeter, of the Eleusinian mysteries. And one day, Demeter came to him in a dream and told him to take my rituals and bring them over to the Christians and keep doing this because Christ is Lord. And he does this. So so you can see with that text alone, I think that's a 4th century, 3rd century text, something like that, maybe 4th century. Yeah, probably 4th century. And but that tells you something right there. That tells you that the Greek Christians were willing to sort of acknowledge the greatness of the Eleusinian mysteries in that time period. They're not saying you're worshiping a demon. They're like, no, Demeter is awesome, but she actually wants you to worship Christ. So it tells you something. There's something to say about that. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Russian spy sleazeball. Thank you for the super chat. Who are the oldest biblical scholar interpreters? Huh? Oldest biblical scholar interpreters. I don't know what that is. What's an interpreter? I don't know. Good question. 316 Immortal. Thank you for the super chat. Hello, brother. You know about the Armenian history? You know about the Battle of Alvarai, the first holy war to preserve Christianity? Not that in particular. I don't know. I like to watch documentaries on the Crusades a lot. And I know that part of the world was super important as far as like the Crusaders always going there first to Edessa and Armenia and stuff like that. Because that was a very Christian, that was a very sacred Christian spot that they're always trying to fight to get back from the Muslims. But I don't know. I'm the last person you'd ask anything about that. I don't know anything about that. Daniel Kyle, I love the podcast. I love the podcast on cannabis and religion. Yeah, man. Cannabis was a big deal. There's evidence of cannabis use in the temple period, in the temple of the Levites using cannabis to get the place all smoky and as like an incense. So, and that's and there's a source about the Scythians doing that too. The Scythians would light up cannabis, and everybody would huff it up and inhale it. So yeah, there's a lot of that stuff going on. Camilo Gitte says, "Thank you for super chat, Neil. I love your work. Question: do you think the mysteries and its initiates had an influence in the development of religious and cultural paradigms?" Yeah, absolutely. It was the function of religion. It was like the technical way of doing things. People just copied that. So there's actually a book. There's actually a book by where is it? It's over here somewhere. It is. Where did I have it? Whatever. It's over here somewhere. John Kloppenborg writes a book called Christ Assemblies, and he shows that the earliest Christian assemblies, ecclesias, churches, they were operating their churches in the same way that you would see Dionysiac groups, devotees of Aphrodite over in Paphos, or the devotees of Theos Hypsistos over in like Phrygia, or like the devotees of Apollo in like Delos or something. And like they all have this certain way of doing things. So they bring out the certain instruments, and they all have like a way. He was like showing that like the way they run their cults is similar to like modern day trade unions. You know how you sign up for your trade union, you become a member, your name gets etched on a stone, and now you're part of that group. That's how the early Christians were. That's also how that's how the pagans were too. They just had different devotees. They're devoted to different gods, and those gods, like those, it was like you go to St. John's Church. You're not worshiping St. John, but you're going to church to worship God through St. John's Church. That's how a lot of these pagans were. They would go to the temple of Aphrodite. And the idea of worshiping Theos, the god, was already like that was like the up to date philosophical way of doing things. It was like Platonism was so big, and everyone thought that there was this one god in control, and there's demonic powers below that. So like a lot of these 2nd to 4th century pagan cults were like that too. Theos Hypsistos was one of those cults where they didn't even have a daemon. They just went right straight to Theos Hypsistos, God Most High. And so that he talks about, there's a whole chapter on Theos Hypsistos in that book too. But absolutely. The mysteries, they all have this in common. They all have baptisms. They all have some sort of ritual immersion. They all have some sort of not psychedelic. They all have some sort of like drink or food that they take. They'll have some sort of initiation into a higher state of after you die. So like you're promised some sort of immortality. They all have like this specific tenets that you find in Christianity. So that to me is like a no-brainer. Thank you for that. Kifa Ali, $20. What is your plan to study physical mediumship? Can we do it together? There is an institute in Brooklyn which certifies physical mediums. Yeah, I guess. I never thought about that. Physical mediumship. I'm interested to hear more about it, though. Send me an email. Sounds cool. Thank you for that super chat. LT, thank you for the $5. Could the same first letter in each new line, I forgot what you called it, just be a thing they did in oral traditions to memorize? Makes sense. Well, no, because those are the first letters of an actual word. They're not just marking down letters. They're actually saying a word, like they were saying Asheri or something. But yeah, they're So I would say that's the answer to that. But yeah, good question. A play called Italy. Do you sometimes think the laws of the Torah were a Greek theological weapon intended to cripple and control Judea? No. I think that they were trying to come up with how all these law codes are everywhere. Law was seen as something that was divine. Having law is what brings order. So like Plato talks about this in depth in Plato's Laws, or not just Plato's Laws, in Plato's Republic. Plato talks about how like law takes it's like the ultimate equalizer, where it gets rid of the ways of people just dog eat dog mentality. When you have law, things are civilized. People wanted law. It wasn't just a way to cripple and control. It was a way to civilize. It was a great thing to have laws. Laws are great. Wouldn't it be horrible if there wasn't like speeding laws and everyone was just driving as fast as they can and everyone was there's car accidents all the time? Laws are good. So they don't cripple and control. They civilize. But interesting question, though. 316 Immortal says, the Battle of Avery was in 451 before the Crusade. Oh, I didn't know which war you were talking about. Oh, wow. So you're talking about the Persians then. You're not even talking about the Muslims. Oh, yeah, interesting. I have no idea. Interesting stuff. Thank you for that super chat. I'll have to look into it. What do you believe will happen in terms of religion in the next 100 years as Christianity declines? Thoughts on Nietzsche's The Death of God as well. I think religion is going to be fine in 100 years, and Christianity will still be around too. It'll probably decline. It'll always be there though. People will always be interested in ancient texts and ancient religions. Christianity is just going to be the one because of how successful it was. It's not going anywhere. It's not going anywhere anytime soon. It might decline, it's been declining, obviously, but I just don't see it ever totally going away. Even the pagan religions, even the cults of Mithras and stuff like that, survive in little pockets all the way to the modern world. Believe it or not, there's always some group out there trying to bring back the old mysteries. Every century you can go and look, you'll find some source, somebody. I found a text from the 9th century where it was like they found these worshipers of the Great Mother in the country somewhere, and they didn't know what to do with them. Like, what do we do? Do we arrest them? Do we kill them? It was like this Byzantine text that I was reading. I read it on this channel actually, but it was like 8th or 9th century. It was 9th century actually. But yeah, so that all the way in the 9th century, there's still pagans around and stuff, and there's always people fascinated by ancient religion, so it's always going to be there. All right, there is a video that somebody did, and I linked the person's channel in the description. But let me pull up this video real quick. And I want to talk about it. This will be my last thing for the night. So, yeah, this is not flattering, by the way. By the way, just before you all hate me for this, just know that this is not what you think. I didn't tell anyone to shut up, so let's just say that. All right, so let's pull this up. Oh, by the way, Magic Magazine. See, I subscribed. I downloaded this because I didn't say what you thought I said. All right, let me change that for you. All right, I subscribed though. You have a cool channel. I like your channel. I just want to say this: cool topics. Talk about fairy pools, Viking axes, the Mithras temple, classic Greek stuff. I was like, all right, let's do this. So I subscribe. I think people should check it out. But we got some drama to take care of, and let's do that.
I do.
You're being annoying with what you're talking about. Yeah, so some of you might have been watching this. I was kind of tipsy. It was like 3 a.m. And now, just before anyone says anything about this, I want to get this out the way. The text on the screen was not what I was talking about. It looks like I'm talking about the text on the screen. She asked me a question about monotheist and Egyptian hermetics, and I barely answered the question. And then I went off on a rant about scholars who redefine the term monotheism to make it something that never existed. And then it's like, what's the point of that? It was such a pointless thing to do. And I was ranting about that, but I left the text on the screen, so she thought I was yelling at her. We already talked about this, so she knows I didn't yell at her. So if you can, you don't have to do it. It's your channel. if you can edit, if you want to edit out this intro, I would appreciate that. But just so people can watch it, let's just watch it. Well, you're trying to sound smart, and it's just annoying. You're just trying to. Well, actually, as a scholar, I learned this a different definition. I don't care. Shut up. You are stupid.
So, why is Neil from Gnostic Informant being so rude to me?
I wasn't.
What has it got to do with Hermetics?
Again, I wasn't talking about you, but are you? By the way, are you in the chat? Let me see. Say something if you're here. How do you get to the beginning? Oh. Okay. I don't see you here, but maybe we can talk next time, or maybe you'll see this later. So she made this video about. She thought I was saying that about her, but if you she actually shows it more in clip, the actual full clip over here. You can see I'm not talking about her. We talked though. We're good now.
Magic Magazine.
We're good.
Thanks for super chat. Yes, the Egyptian stuff. Pythagoras study. How would you define that?
Pythagoras is an OG. One of the greats. One of the greatest of all time. He was a monotheist, by the way. Believed in one God that was supreme. Pythagoras was one of the oldest monotheists on record. But by the way, when I use the term monotheist, I know people are going to go, monotheism, that doesn't exist. We redefine that word. I'm using the term as it used to be when Christians used to use it for themselves, as believing in like one power over the cosmos and like demonic entities and gods and heroes underneath that. Pythagoras is by definition, a monotheist. So that's what I was talking about.
Oh, you got another word other than hermeticos. Another word other than hermeticos. You're talking about the Thoth, the thrice greatest Thoth. Is that what you're talking about? I think I get what you're saying.
All right. Now, I get what you're trying to say here. You're basically making the case that Hermeticism is the de facto Egyptian tradition that finds its roots in Otanism, and then the Otanism sort of evolves into something, and then we find it in the Hellenistic period as Hermeticism. If that's the case, then yeah. If you can demonstrate that Hermeticism is in fact rooted in Otanism somehow, then I would agree. However, when we find Hermeticism as a tradition in the sources, the Hermetica is like a 2nd century text, CE. The Hermetica is not old at all. Well, I guess it's old in comparison to like the Quran or something. But like as far as like being before Christianity or Judaism, no, it's newer. So I think of Hermeticism as like the tradition that's following the Hermetica. Wikipedia says like it started at 300 BC under the Ptolemies or something. That's probably true. Whatever. So, even if that's the case, it's still a Hellenistic Greco-Egyptian religion. And it does have monist tendencies, by the way. It does have this idea of Tot and Hermes, the son and the father. It's kind of like Christianity in a weird way. There's a son and a father, and they're like the head, the Godhead. There's a lot of overlap with Christianity in Hermeticism. But I just don't think that Hermeticism is the same thing as just all Egyptian religion. I think Egyptian religion needs to be divided up into different cities and different cults. Like Crocodilopolis has a cult of Sobek, and the Elephantines have a cult of Khnum, and in Alexandria there's Serapis, and then there's the Temple of Ammon and Siwa. And they all have these different temples and different cults, different priesthoods. And you know that these priesthoods are competing with each other because the sources tell us that. They didn't like each other. They were at war with each other sometimes too. So it wasn't like a unified religion in Egypt. So that would be my disagreement with Hermeticism being this de facto Egyptian religion that goes all the way back to Otnism. But if you can demonstrate that Otnism somehow like goes all the way till the Hellenistic period, then you would be right. You would be right. I don't know what I was thinking there. I was just daydreaming on that part. I don't know what I was thinking about.
Thank you, Magic Magazine. That's your chat.
So let's be really clear about this. When the translators in the Library of Alexandria translated the aphorisms from the Book of the House of Life, or the demonic Book of Thoth, from about 2800 BCE, and the pyramid texts about 3000 BCE, they were the first to translate Thoth as Hermes. This syncretism has unfortunately persisted to this day and has been popularized. So much so that if I use the term Thothetics or similar.
So let me get this straight. There's a pyramid text from 3000 BCE that calls Thoth Hermes. If you could show me that, I would be like, wow. Point to you. I would be like, that would be convincing. But I don't know. I don't know if Steven's in here still. He probably might know the origin of the word Hermes. Let me do a quick search. Origin of the word Hermes. Mycenaean Greek. Ooh, it is pretty old. All right. Linear B, it shows up in Ermaha. That's pretty cool. So it's as old as it's older than Dionysus, it seems like. Well, same, because Dionysus is linear B too. Dionysus is a Bronze Age god. So maybe there was. It's not what I guess I didn't debunk you yet. So it's possible that Hermes somehow shows up in Egypt. Maybe. There are RSP Beeks says it is a Indo-European word, connection to pre-Greek origin. I'm just looking at Wikipedia right now. There might be a cognate with the Vedic Sarama, Mesopotamian snake god Ningishita. Someone brought forth that there was some sort of connection there with the Caduceus. They both had this double serpent thing. That's cool. So yeah, that looks like it's pretty old then. So I guess you're onto something maybe. Let's keep going.
No one would have any idea what I was talking about. The correct term that has been popularized in all of the literature is Hermetics, and we're stuck with it. I know, and I'm sure you know that. So unless we can come up with a new term, we're stuck with it.
And finally, one last video for you by Dr. Justin Sledge.
Oh, sweet.
He does such a great summary of the Hermetica.
Good source. Good source.
To ancient Egyptian pyramid text, which has now become known as Conversations in the Chamber of Light. It's brilliant, right? And he outlines all the comparisons between the two texts, all the similarities, and a few of the differences so well, there's no point in me reinventing the wheel. So I'll just play you this clip and you can see. Let me know what you think.
Thoth is the text connection to the famed Hermetic literature. Here things are, you guessed it, complicated. The clearest parallel is the structure of both texts. The demonic book of Thoth and most Hermetic texts take the form of a kind of master-disciple dialogue. In both texts, Hermes/Thoth acts as a kind of revealer and interrogator for certain kinds of esoteric wisdom. In the Hermetica, that wisdom is fundamentally soteriological. It's about salvation, and often associated with a kind of mystical experience. In the Demotic Book of Ptah, what we have is a complicated initiatory sequence in which the scribal arts and the temple precincts are given, at least to us, in a profoundly esoteric interpretation. Of course, the Demotic Book of Thoth is also concerned with the connections between this world and the next life, and seems to see the House of Life, or the Chamber of Darkness as the text sometimes refers to it, as a kind of nexus between the two. Further, the dream interrogation sequence in the Demotic Book of Thoth seems distantly similar to the kinds of texts we see in the Corpus Hermeticum, especially the vision of the Poimandres in Corpus Hermeticum 1. The more aphoristic style of the Demotic Book of Thoth is perhaps, I think, also important. One theory for the development of the Corpus Hermeticum, and a theory I do find plausible, in fact, is that the dialogue form of those texts as we have them are actually built up around a core of short aphorisms. Thus, the earliest Hermetic texts were probably simply aphorisms of Hermes Trismegistus, and as these were explicated, the dialogues as we know them emerged. The Demotic Book of Thoth is much more on the aphoristic end of that spectrum, and even includes some short wisdom literature sections, very much like other Egyptian literature, but also literature we find throughout the ancient Near East. You can think of something like the Book of Proverbs or Ecclesiastes. So while the content of the two texts is different, the structure of the text does seem somewhat strongly homologous. Further, Thoth himself is referred to in the Demotic text at line 426 as the quote, where, or great, 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 a clear Egyptian version of the thrice great Hermes. In both of these texts, the Hermeticum and the Thoth text refer to the House of Life. The two texts also share some of the same personnel. For instance, Imhotep, or Asclepius, appears.
Now that's interesting. I didn't know this. And I love this. Is why I love watching Dr. Sledge, because now I didn't hear him say anything about 3000 BC pyramid text there, but he does mention this Book of Thoth that's demotic. And from just a quick search, it looks like that was from the Hellenistic period as well, but not the Hermetica's like 100 AD or something like that. So that's like 2nd century CE, AD. This one is like 300 to 200 BC. So it does show that they're drawing back from an older tradition to this newer tradition, is what he's basically saying. And that's cool. I didn't hear him say anything about 3000 BC, though. Let's keep going.
In both texts. There are also literary and ritual parallels as well. For instance, there's a wordplay on the Egyptian word for papyrus roll with the word for generation, which is only possible in Egyptian or Coptic, and occurs in both the Demotic Book of Thoth and on the Discourse on the 8th and the 9th. Very advanced Hermetic text preserved in Coptic in the Nag Hammadi library. Further, both the Latin Asclepius and the Demotic Book of Thoth both seem to share an aversion specifically to the smell of myrrh as a kind of incense. This would have been a very popular incense in the ancient world, and curiously enough, both of them seem to condemn it for some reason. No doubt, there are several points of contact between the Demotic Book of Thoth and the Corpus Hermeticum, though one has to admit the texts are very different. The basic metaphysics of the Corpus Hermeticum is to be found in Middle Platonism and the Middle Stoa, with the Demotic Book of Thoth showing none of that influence.
Yeah.
And while the Corpus Hermeticum does show some basic knowledge of Egyptian temple life, it utterly pales in comparison to the incredibly robust descriptions of the House of Life in the Demotic text. Simply put, we're at square one when it comes to an understanding of the relationship between the Demotic Book of Thoth and the larger Hermetic literature. Clearly, there are connections and contrasting elements, but just what the relationship is remains a fascinating line of research. Regardless of the connection to the Corpus Hermeticum, however, the Demotic Book of Thoth is a positively exciting glimpse into the world of the esoteric initiatory practices of the ancient Egyptian priesthood. The literature of ancient Egypt has long been neglected, and I'm really glad to play a small part in making it more accessible.
Oh, I see it. I saw what you just said. The Papyrus of Ani.
Now, my
I'm really glad to play.
Oh, so okay. I've actually noticed this myself. I've actually myself noticed when I'm looking through the Book of Coming Forth or whatever, these various temple or pyramid texts, that there are things that sound like salvation rituals, where it's like, eat the cakes of Osiris, drink the wine of Osiris, and then you'll have a place in Dua with Osiris. You'll go to Osiris. And then you do find that stuff in Hermetica later on. But as Sledge points out, it's got the Middle Platonist backdrop. Because as I pointed out, as I always talk about my channel, Platonism is dominating the world. Pythagoreanism, Platonism, dominating philosophy. And philosophy always influences theology, never the other way around. The philosophers come along, and they might get killed for it, like Socrates, but their ideas will live on, and then they start to influence the religions, and they start to influence the culture. And then next thing you know, like theology starts to change and update itself from the philosophy. That's what I've noticed. But that was I just want to give you credit for this video. It's cool. I'm not very fond of the beginning because it makes you look like I'm telling you to shut up, and I'm not. I'm not telling you to shut up. But if you know how to, if you watch this later, I don't see you in the chat. If you watch this later, it would be cool if you could clip out that beginning, because it does not look good at all. They should look like I'm telling you to shut up, and I'm not. You know I'm not. As I pointed out, I was talking about people who redefine monotheism into something that just doesn't exist anymore, and it's just like, why are we doing that? We just want to change definitions to all, like, it doesn't change anything about the past. So why are we, like, I don't know. Fine, go ahead, do your little scholarly LARPing. I don't care. Do what you want. Get your peer review books in, and I don't really care. I just want to learn about stuff. But yeah, if you know how to edit your intros, can you please clip that off? You don't have to, but that's my only suggestion. But I do want to recommend your channel to people. You got really cool topics on here. We're into a lot of the similar things. So give Magic Magazine a sub. And that's so okay. Let me talk about what you brought up in this video now. So I'm obviously a fan of the Hermetica, and we'll put out the Hermetica 2, which is like additional sources that are considered hermetic that didn't make this famous Brian Copenhaver's edition of the Hermetica, which is the standard Hermetica that most people will point to. Greek Corpus Hermeticum and Latin Asclepius. This is the thing about Middle Platonism, is you can see how much it influences Christianity just by looking through something like this, and you start to notice, like, the immortality of the soul is big in Hermeticism. You're immortal, and your soul will live on after your death. That is a Middle Platonist idea. And like piety and virtue and those type of things, that, like, one of the texts they found in Nag Hammadi was the sentences of Sextus the Pythagorean. So Nag Hammadi, everyone knows this famous Nag Hammadi. I'll just show you real quick. In the Nag Hammadi library, you can see one of the texts that they found in NHC 12, the sentences of Sextus. They also find they found Hermetic stuff in here. Where is it? Zostrianos that's a Zoroastrian text or Sethian text, but the grandfather of Zoroaster is Zostrianos. There is Hermetic stuff in here too, somewhere. I can find that later. Plato, they found Plato's Republic in here. But then you get this, like, completely Pythagorean text called the Sentences of Sextus. This is a Hellenistic Pythagorean, and they translated all of this dude's work in a whole in Coptic, and it's just sitting there with all this Christian text. So it goes to show how closely these philosophical schools are with Pythagorean or with Hermeticism and Christianity. So they're all sort of drawing from the same milieu. But my response to you would be, well, number one, why do you think Hermeticism is a continuation of some of these earlier traditions? Now, I like how you brought up Sledge, because Sledge is basically pointing out that there are funerary pyramid text, and then there's the Demotic Book of Thoth, and some of that material is in common with the Hermetica. I think you have a good point there, but I don't think that's any different than like Christians borrowing from older Jewish sources, but Christianity also isn't Judaism. You know what I mean? It comes out of that tradition. So I think you're onto something, but I don't like to say that like all Egyptian religion is the same thing. I like to define what periods we're in, what traditions we're in, what city we're in, what language we're in. I like to separate it all up a little bit. But I love the parallels and stuff like that. And I think you're probably mostly right based on what you said. I have a problem with what you said. That's an interesting video. Cool stuff. All right, let's get the super chats out the way. It's been 2.5 hours already. So what do we got left? We got a couple super chats left. And History Valley, thank you for the super chat. I'll be on his channel soon. We'll be talking about the historical Jesus. I think we'd be interested to take a deeper look into the agreements between the DSS and the Septuagint. They'll agree against Masoretic text. Yeah, that's an interesting point. Because I mean, the Masoretic text is just like I don't even know how they put that together. It's just like the up-to-date final product of the Hebrew Bible, if I'm not mistaken. But the Dead Sea Scrolls have like variants and stuff like that, and there's even Greek stuff in the Dead Sea Scrolls. There's even like Greek fragments in there. That's a good point. Complitz here, thank you for the super chat. Being out there for the realness makes sometimes tipsy. Thank you. S. Mill, thank you. Neoplatonism starts 275 CE. Philosophical I said Middle Platonism, not Neoplatonism. And I don't think it's 275. I think it's, when did Plotinus live? Plotinus lived in like 220 something, right? Let's see. No, I think you're right. Oh, no, yeah, it was like 250, I would say. Because Plotinus, it's actually debatable. Number one, Neoplatonism is a arbitrary word. They didn't call themselves Neoplatonists. They called themselves Platonists. Same with the Middle Platonists. They didn't call themselves Middle Platonists. They called themselves Platonists. But later on, as scholars do, they like to box everything up in their little categories. Later on, scholars were like, oh, Middle Platonism, Plutarch looks a little bit different than Plato. Let's call that Middle Platonism. Oh, Plotinus, he's a little bit different than Plutarch. Let's call that Neoplatonism. So like Plotinus gets credited for inventing Neoplatonism, but he didn't really like declare, I declare Neoplatonism today. And actually some scholars think that's not Plotinus, it's his teacher Ammonius Saccas. That was the teacher of Plotinus, and some think that he was the founder of Neoplatonism, that these are all his ideas because he didn't write anything down, that Plotinus gets credit for it. So yeah, it's arbitrary. Neoplatonism, Middle Platonism, but basically Middle Platonism is like when the Platonists started adopting Stoicism, and the Neoplatonism is the same thing. You're still influenced by Stoicism and Platonism, but then they're starting to add in like theurgy and like different ideas about like the soul and like some sort of like numerology stuff. They have like a whole bunch of like triad stuff going on. Like Proclus is all into this stuff where he's like making triads of gods, like Trinity making and stuff. Weird. Neoplatonism got real crazy. It got real like what's the word? it got like so like high level. Like it's like if you try to reading Proclus, it's hard. It's not fun to read. It's hard. I don't even, I try it and it's like, I don't know what he's talking about. It's like everything he's saying is like gibberish. That's Neoplatonism. I'm more of a fan of the Middle Platonists, the Stoic chill dudes, like, you know, like Plutarch is my favorite. I love reading Plutarch because he just talks about it. He just writes about everything: religion, history, politics, all types of stuff. But yeah, philosophical Hermeticism starts 75 CE. I think some people think that Hermeticism starts before, like in the 3rd century BCE, but the Hermetica as a text is what you said. It's like late 1st century, early 2nd century, something like that. Yeah, and then there's like the Emerald Tablet. That's some Middle Ages stuff. So people think that stuff's old. It's not. It's not old. Actually, what I'm looking at, I'm seeing that the Hermetica might even be 3rd century CE. I don't know. I don't know who dates this stuff, but all I know is this, that the Hermetica comes later. Hermeticism, as like Sledge and Magic Magazine point out, probably does go back to like 300 BC or something like that. But thank you for that super chat. I wish you lived closer, says Derek. Member for 29 months. Yeah, you know, I'm on the other side of the world, right? No, I'm just kidding. I'm like a stone's throw away. I could throw a rock to Derek's house right now. By the way, Derek fled the state when the hurricane came. I sat right here and grabbed my wine and went live. And I didn't lose power. We were good. So I guess Zeus likes me. So he took care of me. So S. Mill, thank you for the super chat. Into the last one of the night. Conversations in the House of Life is 50 CE, not pyramid text. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Conversations in the House of Life. I don't know what you mean. Yeah, I never even brought this text up. I don't even know what you're talking about. A new translation. Oh, the Book of Thoth. That's the Demotic text. I don't know. No, that's not true. The Demotic Book of Thoth. I think that's like 200 BC or something. Well, I think it's a rolling text, actually. So it says right here, originally written in Demotic, the text dates to the Greco-Roman period between 300 BC and 400 AD. Wow. 700 years worth of text. So it's a rolling text. So really, there is no right or wrong answer to that. But that's like the Bible. It's all rolling stuff. It's all like stretching back here and then ending over here. Like 300 or 400 BC and 1st century AD. Like that's just how like the Bible is. But yeah, Hermetica isn't any different, I guess. So is this another super chat that just came up? Oh shit. Mark, thank you for this. I love your channel. Any advice on where to get Gmirkin and other books cheaper? Not rich here. That's a good question. Gmirkin's books are kind of pricey. If Gmirkin's watching, maybe you can help him out with that. Archive.org. But yeah. That's a good question. I don't know. I got the books from Amazon, so I've had them for a while. But it's worth it. It's a good stuff. I'm sure you can find. There's got to be something out there you can find. But yeah, I don't know the answer to that. I apologize. I wish I could help you with that. Sorry. Let's see. All right. So that's it. I think I talked about everything I wanted to talk about. Monotheism, the Bible, the Septuagint. What do you got? Like, I think the Psalm 119 thing is the game over. I mean, that to me is like, you can't just say this word is better. This word only shows up in Hebrew, so therefore they didn't know what to write there, which is a good argument. But like, there's always some way around that. Someone's going to argue, well, maybe we lost that Greek word. Maybe it meant something before. Psalm 119 is demonstratable. It's Hebrew.
and then it translates to Greek. Demonstratable. So, but I think it's pretty clear that all this stuff shows up or after 300 BC. And there might have been sources that go back before that. It might be Persian period text. We just don't know. We just can't find it. We're just left to guess. Thank you, Zach Horner, for that 199. All right, I'm going to close out now. I appreciate everybody, and I'll talk to you next time I go live. Oh, I got a video coming out in 2 days on November 1st. And the video is going to be about this time of the year, Halloween, Samhain, also the Thesmophoria, the Sukkot festival, and different harvest moon festivals. That's kind of what they were, harvest moon festivals, lunar festivals of the harvest. So stay tuned for that to come out in 2 days. Just waiting on some some sponsor approval stuff. That will be out soon. So be on the lookout. And let's see what we got. Oh shit. I forgot that I even had these. I got a lot of old pictures loaded up here. All right. You have just attained true gnosis.
You have just attained